All right, we should be live. We should be good to go for another day of crazy stuff. Actual crazy stuff happened yesterday. Roughly an hour after I ended my stream yesterday, two National Guardsmen were shot and I believe were killed. I believe they are no longer with us, sadly. A devastating, vile act. Something so incredibly disgusting. Unarmed National Guardsmen shot and killed. Disgusting, horrendous. There's a ton of words you can use to describe what happened there. Because, yeah, it's a fucking disgusting act. Absolutely horrendous. We have a live conference here based on what happened with the FBI.
All right. Come on, Mayor. Okay. Next to me, Mayor. All right, Alicia, you know where to go. Where's Blanchard? There he is. Okay, good. You know, it seems like we've been here before. Is this working? Is this on? Where's... It's working?
My God, stop
right.
punching it.
Thank you all for being here on this difficult day. As you know, my name is Janine Pirro. I am the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, and I am joined here by several individuals who represent agencies who have been working around the clock since this horrific event happened. To my left, we have the director of the FBI. We have General Leland Blanchard of the National Guard. Mayor Bowser is here as well. We have Frank Saldana of the DEA, Chris Hecht of DHS, Executive Assistant Chief Jeffrey Carroll of the MPD, Darren Cox of the Washington FBI Field Office, and a Special Agent in Charge, Samuel Ward of the ATF in Washington. Now, I want to provide you with an update on the tragic shooting that occurred on two brave members of the West Virginia National Guard as they served in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, today, as most families join together to give thanks for the blessings that have been bestowed upon them, two families are shattered and destroyed and torn apart as a result of the actions of one man. First and foremost, our hearts go out to the victims and their families. These are dedicated service members who were performing their duties in service to our nation, and they are currently in critical condition. They have undergone surgery. We pray for their well-being as they continue to be cared for in the best possible way.
Okay, so there were reports yesterday that they were deceased on site, but I guess they're in critical condition, and I mean, from what I saw, it looked absolutely awful. This was very disturbing, to say at the very least. Very gross. A vile act here, done by an individual that honestly should be... I'm gonna keep some words to myself there. Gotta be careful here on YouTube with that one. But it's safe to say that the individual that did this act should not see daylight, I think, going forward. I don't know what caused him to do this, but it was awful. Absolutely awful. And fuck, man. I hope these National Guardsmen pull through, but based on what I saw, it was very bad. Very, very bad.
We have been in constant contact with their families and have provided them with every resource needed during this difficult time. The two National Guards men that we're talking about are Sarah Beckstrom, who's 20 years old, and Andrew Wolf, who is 24 years old. They were uniformed members of the West Virginia National Guard, and they were in D.C. to keep D.C. safe, pursuant to President Trump's executive order to make D.C. safe and beautiful. They answered the call, they took the charge, they volunteered, They put their lives on the line for people they don't even know. And that, unfortunately, is becoming a reality more and more for the members of law enforcement. Yesterday on Thanksgiving Eve at approximately 2:15, near 17th and I Streets in the northwest section of the district, near the Farragut West Metro Station, two uniformed guardsmen were ambushed in a brazen and targeted attack. A lone gunman opened fire without provocation, ambush style, armed with a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver. One guardsman is struck, goes down, and then the shooter leans over and strikes the guardsman again. Another guardsman is struck several times. Fellow guardsmen who were there responded immediately, engaging the suspect, neutralizing the threat, and subduing him at the scene. He was transported to a local hospital where he remains, as we speak, under heavy guard. Thanks to the swift and coordinated response of the National Guard and the Metropolitan Police Department, no additional victims were harmed, and the scene was secured within minutes. The suspect, he has been identified as Ramanullah Lakhanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan who entered the United States under Biden's Operation Allies Welcome, a program following the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. He resided in Bellingham, Washington, with his wife and, we believe, 5 children. And we're working very closely with our federal partners, especially DHS and the FBI, to review his immigration history and the vetting process itself. What we know about him is that he drove his vehicle across country from the state of Washington with the intended target of coming to our nation's capital. As we stand here today, the charges that are appropriate right now are 3 counts of assault with intent to kill while armed, a violation of D.C. Code 22-401 and D.C. Code 22-4502. He will also be charged with possession of a firearm during a crime of violence. He faces 15 years under the assault with the intent to kill. We intend to continue monitoring what the charges will be, depending upon the well-being of the guardsmen. We are praying.
I think the outcome, regardless of the how the guardsmen are, the person in question, the 29-year-old dude who did this with the Smith & Wesson revolver, as we're hearing, he should be, if you catch my drift,
that they survive, and that the highest charge will not have to be murder in the first degree. But make no mistake, if they do not, that will certainly be the charge, murder in the first degree. The Department of Justice, under Attorney General Pam Bondi, is committed to a thorough and an impartial investigation where we will hold this perpetrator accountable under the full weight of the law. Now, Sarah and Andrew volunteered. They came here to protect the people of the district, pursuant to a crime emergency that President Trump rightly declared in this city and in other cities across the country. Our nation's capital should not and must not be a place where evil comes to commit violence, whatever their cause or motive may be. We should not have to live in fear in the nation's capital, especially by one who came here from a foreign country. And through a process that was so absurd that he came through and released into this country, as many were, knowing virtually nothing about his vetting. This is what happens in this country when people are allowed in who are not properly vetted. These guardsmen and all who are here to protect the district are the line that separates a civilized society from a barbaric one. They are the ones who stand for law and order. This was not just an attack, it was a direct challenge to law and order in our nation's capital. And the individual will be made fully accountable. And though it seems that we have been here before under President Trump, make no mistake, and the Attorney General, we will not allow this to be normalized. It will be confronted, condemned, and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Now, my message to the individual who committed these acts is you picked the wrong target, the wrong city, and the wrong country, and you will be sorry for the violence and the evil that you perpetrated in our nation's capital. And now I call upon the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
877 Cash now.
I'll begin my remarks and my remarks the same way, with prayer for our fallen soldiers, prayer for our law enforcement community, prayer for our National Guardsmen and women, prayer for our brave prosecutors at the Department of Justice and the offices of the D.C. United States Attorney. We must come together as a nation, especially on this Thanksgiving Day, and remember the sacrifices that so many are making around the world and around this country to secure our freedoms under President Trump's brilliant leadership and administration. I'll provide an update on the case as follows. It is an ongoing investigation of terrorism. Make no mistake about it. The FBI is leading out on these federal assault on a federal law enforcement officer investigation on many fronts. We immediately, with our law enforcement partners in the Metropolitan Police Department and the interagency, secured the scene, seized the weapon, sent in our evidence response team immediately to collect evidence, and started doing block-by-block canvasses. We are looking for and interviewing witnesses. The firearm and other materials have been sent to our Quantico laboratory already yesterday for immediate analysis. That work is ongoing. Partnering with the D.C. United States Attorney's Office, we have also executed multiple search warrants around the country to include the subject's last known residence, which is in the state of Washington. The search warrant was executed on that house last night or early this morning, and it is an ongoing process. All the individuals found in the house have been interviewed, and some interviews remain ongoing. We will not stop until we interview anyone and everyone associated with the subject, the house, and every piece of his life. There's also subject interviews, relations conducted in San Diego, pursuant to our ongoing investigation. So, as the judge noted, this is a coast-to-coast investigation being led right here in Washington, D.C., and this subject definitely did pick the wrong country. And we will rise together as a nation to show the world what we do here. And we are thankful that we have the Attorney General's brave leadership and President Trump's brave leadership and priorities to safeguard our communities. I also spoke to Director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, last night, and Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. There is confirmation now that the subject had a relationship in Afghanistan with partner forces. We are fully investigating that aspect of his background as well, to include any known associates that are either overseas or here in the United States of America. That is what a broad-based international terrorism investigation looks like. We will provide continuous details to the American public while at the same time not jeopardizing the ongoing prosecution to ultimately hold this perpetrator accountable in our courts of law. We will provide as much transparency as possible, but as you can see, the breadth and scope of this investigation will continue. We will continue to hit the streets and hit every town and every house and talk to every witness. The men and women of the FBI and the Metropolitan Police Department and the interagency, to include the Department of Homeland Security, DEA, and ATF, are working tirelessly on this Thanksgiving Day. And I know just by talking to the leaders behind me that instead of going on and being with their families, everyone rogered up and showed up to work today. And none of them want to go home. That's the resolve that we have together as a team to bring to you justice for this heinous act of terrorism here in our nation's capital. And as the judge said, we will ensure that our law enforcement partners are out there in full force to make sure the world can enjoy our nation's capital. We will not let this heinous act of violence prevent people from visiting our beautiful nation's capital. And we will also continue to highlight any evidence that we can publicly. And as the judge said, this individual is in this country for one reason and one reason alone, because of the disastrous withdrawal from the Biden administration and the failure to vet in any way, shape, or form, This individual and countless others, and this administration has taken the rightful step to stop any further allowance of people with this similar background into the country, and we're thankful for that. And as I said, this investigation remains ongoing, and I think I'll turn it over to General Blanchard of the National Guard now. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. All across America this morning, families are waking up. They'll spend the day with their children, their brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, friends from across the community. There will be the smell of turkey, all the fixings. They'll watch parades, football games. They'll pray together. They'll talk about what they're grateful for. This morning, there are two families that will not have that opportunity. Andy and Sarah's families, they're spending the day reflecting on the past. And in the days coming, they'll reflect on and think about what could have been, what might be. Because regardless of the outcome, we know that their lives, their families' lives are all changed forever. Because one person decided to do this horrific and evil thing. And all across America, we are also reminded that there are many law enforcement agents, first responders, soldiers, service members all around the world who at best will come home, eat some cold turkey, open up Tupperware, eat what's left over, because they spent the day defending the American ideals, getting out there and getting after it on every American citizen's behalf. I will say that the District of Columbia National Guard, this task force, is more committed this morning to the President's directive to make D.C. safe and beautiful. Our resolve will be tested. It is being tested, but make no mistake, each and every one of these soldiers and airmen will meet and exceed the expectation that we have for them. They are, in fact, America's best. I'm proud of each and every one of them. I pray for each and every one of them today, and in particular for these two young service members who are willing to go above and beyond and pay whatever price our nation asks of them. I ask every American today to keep them in their thoughts and prayers as you go about your day. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Mayor, where's Mayor Bowser?
Right,
yeah.
Thank you, Judge. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and I want to associate myself with the remarks of our Adjutant General from the D.C. National Guard. I want to be very clear what the judge and everyone has reported here. Somebody drove across the country, came to Washington, D.C. to attack America. And that person will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. These young people should be at home in West Virginia with their families.
ATF, anybody? DHS? Anyone? Okay. I also want to say that both Sarah and Andrew, I believe, were sworn in less than 24 hours before they were shot on the street in Washington. Any questions?
Could you drill down on a possible motive? Have you got any information and intelligence on a possible motive?
You know, as the directors indicated, this is a fluid investigation. People are working around the clock. It's too soon to say what the motive is, but there are definitely areas that we're looking into, but not ready to say.
All right, so that was I guess like your main response here, the main press conference. The rest of it is questions, etc., etc. Switching gears, big news out of literally nowhere. Alberta, Danielle Smith addresses industry after signing federal provincial energy deal. It looks like they did it. Now, whether it's for pipelines or bitumen or whatever, who knows at the moment? I'm sure we will learn more as we watch here. But this is big. This is obviously a major step in the right direction for Alberta and all of Canada. Obviously, at this point, it's like Mark Carney had to play ball or deal with an entire province that is already not happy, right? So it was kind of like you needed to do something there, Mark, because it's not looking too hot. And who knows where this is going to go, right? Just because he claims he's going to do something doesn't mean he's actually going to do it. And we've seen already time and time again, Mark Carney say one thing and do the opposite. Just because he claims there's going to be this big energy deal and a possible pipeline, LNG plant, bitumen, this, that, and the fourth, who knows how long it's going to take. And a lot of people are claiming that we could be heading into a spring-summer election if a non-confidence vote were to arrive next year. So who knows what's really going to happen at the end of the day. Let's take a listen, though.
Thank you. Well, hello, my friends. Good morning, everyone. I hope you enjoyed hearing the comments of the Prime Minister this morning. I was pleased he was able to pop up and see you before going on to some of his other meetings today, as well as a speech at the Chamber. I'm so delighted to be here with not only members of my cabinet, but also our partners in Indigenous communities. We've got Rebecca Schultz, Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rajan Sani, Minister of Indigenous Relations, Jason Nixon, Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services. He was part of our negotiating team. Nathan Neudorf, Minister of Affordability and Utilities. Minister Brian Jean, Minister of Energy and Minerals. And then, of course, we have Billy Morin, former chief, but he's now MP for Edmonton Northwest. Former Chief Jim Boucher of the Mackay First Nation. Chris Sankey, former councillor of Lax Kw'alaam Band in British Columbia. Dave Lamouche, President of Métis Settlements General Council. Chief George Arcan Jr. of Alexander First Nation. Chief Tony Alexis of Alexander Nakota Sioux Nation. Chief Cody Thomas of Enoch Cree Nation. Chief Kelsey Jacko of Cold Lake First Nations. We also have a friend visiting from Saskatchewan, Chief Delbert Wapas of Thunderchild First Nation, and of course Stephen Buffalo, President and CEO of the Indian Resource Council. We had a few others on the list. I'm not sure that they are here, but I'm going to see more at the Indian Resource Council meeting a little bit later today, where I'm going to go for a lunch speech. But today is a great day for the people of Alberta and for all of Canada. The last 10 years have been an extremely difficult time for hundreds of thousands of Albertans and their families that directly or indirectly rely on and make their living from a strong and vibrant and growing Alberta oil and gas sector. These Albertans are mothers and fathers and young people working so hard to put food on the table, to pay for hockey and soccer fees, and to save for the down payment on their first home. These are also small business owners that too often have found themselves as well in their business working very hard to build due to a regulatory environment that has made it almost impossible for them to succeed. And more broadly, the last 10 years have left hundreds of thousands of Albertans skeptical and oftentimes questioning the long-term viability of our nation as we watched its deliberate phase-out of our province's most valuable asset, leaving it trapped and wasted in the vast oil sands of northern Alberta, and with it, innumerable lost investment opportunities and tens of thousands of lost jobs. These were dark times. But in those difficult circumstances, Albertans came together, as we always do, to raise our voices and use our ingenuity to find a way to overcome the challenge. We fought and won in the courts of law. We fought and won in the court of public opinion. And we fought because we had to, because that's what Albertans do. We always fight very hard for this province that we love so dearly and for its incredible people. But Albertans are also proud and loyal Canadians. We don't fight for the sake of fighting. We don't look for conflict when there's an opportunity for peace and prosperity. Albertans are happiest when we are hard at work getting things done, solving problems, creating opportunities, building our province and our country. That is when we are truly at our best. However, in order for Alberta to find its way to prosperity within a united Canada, we need the federal government to partner with us instead of fighting against us. Now, Prime Minister Mark Carney and I may not always agree on everything, but we do share a few key beliefs. We both know that Canada can never reach its true potential as a global energy superpower without a strong and thriving Alberta energy sector at the center of that effort. And I am pleased to say that this Prime Minister has made it clear to me that he is willing to work with me and Alberta's government to accomplish that shared goal. And that, my friends, is something that we have not seen from a Canadian Prime Minister in over a decade. And it is my firm belief that Albertans from right across the political spectrum, whether they be staunch federal Conservatives or Liberals or New Democrats or something else, they expect me as their Premier to partner with this federal government to seize this long-awaited opportunity for our province. I've spoken at length about the need to build more pipeline infrastructure, to export more oil to hungry Asian markets, and to diversify our customer base. I have repeatedly stated how critical it is to reform a broken regulatory environment that is scaring away investment and demoralizing our energy entrepreneurs here at home. And I have asked repeatedly for the federal government to cease their attempts to throttle our energy industry, repeal or overhaul their 9 bad laws, and work with Alberta to grow our energy sector for the benefit of the entire country. And today's agreement is the first step in accomplishing all of these critical objectives and unleashing the power and promise of Alberta's energy sector in a way never seen before in this country. This agreement means the end of the punitive oil and gas emissions cap so that our great energy producers can grow and thrive again. This agreement means the immediate suspension of the federal net zero power regulations in Alberta, which had placed our electrical grid at a very serious risk of failure and limited any hope of substantial investment in AI data centers and applications development. This agreement includes a clear path to the construction of an over 1 million barrel per day Indigenous co-owned bitumen pipeline to Asian markets so that our province and our country are no longer dependent on just one customer to buy our most valuable resource. This agreement also allows for needed adjustments to the tanker ban when the new pipeline to Asia is approved by the Major Projects Office, as well as amendments that will ensure our companies are able to advertise their environmental leadership and efforts throughout the world without a fear of penalty. And this agreement also means that Alberta will be a world leader in the development and implementation of emissions reduction infrastructure, particularly in carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Alberta has a unique opportunity to show the entire world that the solution for reducing emissions does not entail capping productivity, growth, or innovation in oil and gas development. Rather, it is to leverage the profitability of the oil and gas sector to invest in the very technologies that will revolutionize all industries in their effort to reduce emissions globally. This agreement means Alberta will work with our federal partners and the Pathways companies to commence and complete the world's largest carbon capture, utilization, and storage infrastructure project. It will also make Alberta heavy oil the lowest intensity barrel on the market and displace millions of barrels of heavier emitting fuels around the globe. This is Alberta's moment of opportunity. Our opportunity to show the nation, as well as the entire world, that resource development and emissions reduction can not only coexist, but can actually complement one another for the benefit of billions of people around the world. Alberta is willing to take on and conquer the challenge as partners with the federal government. Now, I need to be clear, the government is just, this agreement with the government is just the first step in this journey. There is much more hard work to be done. Trust must be built and earned in the partnership as we move through the next steps of this process, whether that be working with the federal government to prepare our bitumen pipeline submission for the Major Projects Office, or putting together the final elements of a carbon pricing agreement that will be implemented through the province's tier program that balances competitiveness with accountability for heavy emitters. And although I am not blind to the fact that the people of Alberta have had the rug pulled out from underneath them too many times to count over the past 10 years, I also know that a new relationship and a new beginning needs a starting point grounded in good faith. And today, I hope, is that new starting point. So I do want to thank the Prime Minister.
I mean, that's all this is, though, is a starting point, and realistically, just because there's a start doesn't mean there's an end. And it sounds like they are going to float the idea of this bitumen pipeline and other projects, which will then be screened by the Major Projects Office, which will then have to go through the Build Canada Committee, which will then end up on Dominic LeBlanc's desk, to which then he will maybe bring it to Cabinet and eventually Mark Carney. Now, considering Mark Carney is in direct talks with Danielle Smith over this, the Minister LeBlanc might be skipped over. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of hoops Alberta's going to have to jump through to accomplish this. And I don't know. There's a lot of Liberal ministers that are not happy about this one. Will their caucus fall apart? Will they end up turning coat and not voting on certain things? Will projects not pass at all because simply people are upset with the fact that this could potentially go through? Who knows what the future holds? But this is simply just a starting point, and that's really all it is. It's just more talk. That's essentially all I'm getting from this. It is a big announcement to some degree, but it's more talk. It's more dialogue. It's more conversation that realistically could end up going nowhere. Just saying. So, I don't know. Let's see what happens, I guess.
So I do want to thank the Prime Minister as well as his team for working with my team to get this agreement to the finish line. I'd also like to thank our negotiating team, and that included Ministers Jason Nixon and Rajan Sawhney, along with my Chief of Staff, Rob Anderson, and Deputy Ministers Liam Stone and Larry Comeyer for the great work that they did on this initiative. And I'm excited, as is my government and our UCP MLAs, to roll up our sleeves and to continue the work on this remarkable opportunity for Alberta and for Canada. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions. Thank you. Thanks so much. Now, I think Sam Blackett is somewhere moderating questions. Oh, there he is.
Yes, we'll now start the media Q&A. We are tight in time today. We'll be taking one question, one follow-up per usual. Please state your name and outlet before asking your question, and we'll start off at our mic in the room. Go ahead.
All right, Heather Yurix-West from Global National. Thanks for taking my question.
Yeah.
What is your view, Premier, of the power of BC or a First Nation to veto a potential pipeline deal? The MOU talks a lot about consultation, but what happens if an agreement can't be reached?
Well, as you can see, the MOU does not contain a veto. But I think that we both recognize jointly that there is a requirement for consultation. And indeed, we believe that there's an imperative for Indigenous ownership. We created the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, and it expanded its ability to underwrite up to $3 billion worth of loan guarantees. I see British Columbia also has a similar program. The federal government has a similar program. And so Minister Sawhney has already begun the engagement. She's been to Kitimat, she's been to Prince Rupert, she's been talking with BC and Alberta nations. And we know that that's hard work that needs to be done, that we will do, we intend to do, and we're looking forward to having genuine consultation and ownership. And as for Premier Eby, I spoke with him last night. And there's lots in the agreement that we can focus on together, where he is supportive of the expansion of the Trans Mountain pipeline capacity. He is supportive of Interties and working with us on nuclear. He's supportive of working with us on expanding additional LNG export as well as ammonia. So may not be in agreement with everything that is in this proposal, but we're going to have trilateral talks to make sure that we can move forward on the elements in this plan.
And my follow-up, do you think this MOU will be enough to distinguish, quell any remaining separatist sentiment that may remain in Alberta?
I hope so. I mean, I had always felt that the former government of Justin Trudeau created the independence movement. And my first conversations with Prime Minister Mark Carney were that he could end it. He could take the wind out of it. Because we saw this once before. We saw that independence sentiment was very high in the early 1980s when there was the National Energy Program. But when Brian Mulroney came in and reversed that policy, it disappeared. So I would say that good policy and genuinely addressing the concerns of Albertans is always a pathway to have a good and solid relationship. And I think the Prime Minister understands that. Certainly, based on this agreement, it shows he does, and so I'm hopeful. Thanks.
Hi, Premier Ezra Levant from Rebel News. The first deadline in the MOU, if I'm reading it right, is April, where the duty is on Alberta to jack up carbon taxes. And the last date in the MOU, if I'm reading it right, correct me if I'm not, is 2040. That's when this pipeline, that's sort of the end date. It can't be any later than that. In terms of building trust with the anti-oil liberals, they're asking Alberta to raise carbon taxes now for a promise of an oil pipeline years or even more than a decade in the future. Does that really build trust?
Well, you have to start somewhere. And one thing I would say is that we did have the Supreme Court of Canada rule on the federal government's ability to set a price on emissions. So the Supreme Court has ruled on that. It's part of the reason why we negotiated a stringency agreement that would have seen the carbon tax price go up to $170 a barrel by 2030. We've demonstrated, and I think the Prime Minister agrees, that's too high, too fast. So that's why we understand that there was always going to be a negotiation around that. We froze the carbon tax at $95, pending consultation with the industry and greater work with the Prime Minister. But remember, Alberta was the first to have an industrial carbon price. They did we implemented that in 2007. It's generated revenues that have allowed us to invest billions of dollars in new technologies, including carbon capture. So there is a commitment on the part of the industry to have a carbon price, and we did do some consultation on that. We're just glad that we have means to manage it our way in Alberta under our tier program, and you'll see as of April 1st, and no, that wasn't a joke. April 1st is going to be the date that we have an agreement on that front. When it comes to the building of a bitumen pipeline to Asian markets to the BC coast. Though, if you read the MOU, those two things have to happen in tandem. That we have to see the Pathways project proceeding at the same time as an agreement to build that. One is dependent on the other. I don't know that the Prime Minister would have agreed to a new bitumen pipeline without Pathways, and we wouldn't have agreed to Pathways without a new bitumen pipeline. So they are going to be staged. They are going to go on together. We've already had a meeting with Pathways about how we're going to do that. That will require a trilateral negotiation as well. But I'm very hopeful. Since we have used carbon capture technology before for enhanced oil recovery, that's another part of this announcement, is that CO2 will be able to be used for enhanced oil recovery, which should allow us to generate more revenue. So I would say that you don't always get 100% of what you want, but we addressed 7 out of the 9 bad laws that I'd put on the table to, I think, what will be the satisfaction of Albertans. And I think that this will allow us to see some substantial investments.
I think that's important what she just said there. You don't always 100% get what you want. Here's what I can picture. And call me whatever you want it to. I don't care. Here's what I could picture. They will expand the capacity of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Right? They'll do that. And then they will continue to tie up and they will continue to drag out the process for the new bitumen pipeline to the point that it never actually gets done. So they will give Alberta maybe a small win here or there, upgrading this, turning up the capacity of that, expanding maybe the Trans Mountain a little bit. But yeah, you don't always get 100% of what you want, and I feel like that's exactly what's going to happen here with Mark Carney and Danielle Smith. Maybe not. Maybe, you know what? Mark Carney will pull through and do absolutely everything, but based on what we have seen, that's not his track record. He hasn't done half, if not 90% of the things he claimed. And here we are, almost a year in, right? So I don't know. It feels like it's just like a couple toys in the sandbox for Alberta to play with while they drag on the real issue. They drag out the real projects that need to be done there. That's just how I'm looking at it. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but who knows? Maybe they'll actually do it. I don't know. There should be a little bit of hope at the end of the day, but not giving all of my trust in this. Not at all. Not at all. We're still talking about the exact same Liberal government, the exact same ministers. It's not that different. It's not a different government. You got to repeat that over and over again. We are not dealing with a different government.
I mean, that's the thing about a peace deal. You have to make it with an enemy. So I suppose the fact that for a decade, his Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, it was about putting a capital strike on the oil and gas sector. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was asked about pipelines, and he said, boring. So is there anything, I mean, after a lifetime of attacking the oil patch, he was even interrogated by the U.S. Congress for an attempt to capital strike their oil companies. Is there anything the Prime Minister has said to you in private that you could share with us that would signal that his lifetime's work of attacking carbon-based fuels will somehow be put to the side? Like, I think he's just a slightly smarter version of Stephen Guilbeault. I think he hates the oil patch as his life's work. Is there anything he's said to you that make you believe that maybe he can be turned on this?
Well, I'll start by saying my joke has been that I would love for pipelines to be boring again. I would love for, no matter what party is in power, what level of government, that there wasn't sort of an overwrought response anytime anyone talked about building a pipeline. It's actually quite remarkable that we're talking about expanding uranium mines, building nuclear power plants, building new transmission lines through pristine areas, massive new mining projects, and not one of them has raised any ire on the part of any environmental group or anyone in the media, but there has been all of this ire raised around a pipeline. So I hope that we can make pipelines boring again, because it's just a way to get our product to the consumers who need it. I would say that, as you know, I was not a huge champion of carbon capture technology when I was in politics the first time. I wasn't. But I've seen with the passage of time, the investments being made and the fact that the technology works and we're getting better and better at it, and you can create a product out of it, so that you can enhance oil recovery, I changed my mind. And so I would say that the Prime Minister, maybe in the past 10 years, it looked like wind and solar and batteries were going to be the ability to power industrial economies. I think the world discovered that's not true. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine, with the instability in the Middle East, everyone is having to recalibrate and rethink that. I was recently in the Middle East, and the conversation around the table now is talking about natural gas as a foundational fuel, not a transition fuel. So I think that demonstrates that there is a global understanding of how important it is to have reliable electricity. And so I have to just give the Prime Minister credit for perhaps he's recalibrating his own thinking on this. It certainly seems to be in the agreement that we signed, but we will trust, but we will verify. We will make sure that he lives up to the commitments in this agreement that we had, and we have to proceed somewhere with a measure of good faith. I can tell you 100% that the former Prime Minister would never have moved this far on these issues. We tried for 3 years, we got nowhere. And in my very first meeting with the Prime Minister, I said to him, you know, the way that we can get to an agreement is just orienting around a 2050 target. Our industry is there. We think it's achievable with technology. And you'll see in the context of this MOU that the interim targets are gone. And so that's what we're going to move forward on. And we'll see as we meet these milestones whether I'm correct or whether your skepticism is correct.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ezra. We're going to take one more from the room, then take one or two from the phones before coming back to the room. Go ahead.
Hi, Premier. Laura Osmond with The Logic. When it comes to trying to find a proponent for this pipeline, is this MOU enough to start bringing private investment on board? Or in your conversations with potential proponents, are they looking to get farther down the line? At what point do you think you might be able to announce some kind of proponent taking over?
Well, I think that the fact that this room filled up with, I think, 24 hours notice gives you an idea of the enthusiasm that we have in the sectors that make billion-dollar investment decisions. And many of the people in this room have been holding on to capital or redeploying it elsewhere. So I think that's going to cause a lot of really interesting conversations now that they've seen the structure of this agreement. We'll know in the coming weeks and months, generally speaking, about final investment decisions. But I've been encouraged to see that even with the announcement in the budget that they were looking at not implementing the emissions cap, which we confirm today, you've seen Enbridge talk about 400,000 barrels a day on their main line that they want to expand. TMX has talked about an additional 400,000 barrels per day that they want to optimize. South Bow, using the old Keystone assets, have talked about a 650,000 barrel a day project. I've been in touch, the folks from the St. Lawrence Seaway Group have been in touch with me saying, can we get oil to Thunder Bay so that we can get it out on tankers to markets in Europe. We have oil by rail projects being talked about going all the way to Nova Scotia and being exported out of Sydney. I'm watching with great interest as Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew negotiates an economic corridor co-owned with First Nations, and whether there's an opportunity for us to also be able to have a pipeline go there and also reach European markets. Doug Ford and I signed an MOU about perhaps having a spur line going to James Bay with a similar kind of model. So all of those projects are now going to be able to go ahead because there is not going to be an emissions cap on our production. And in the meantime, because I think our biggest opportunity is a new market, a new pipeline to get to markets in Asia, I'll be spending a lot of time working on that. So we have, I think, 20 individuals at our table giving us advice from all of the big pipeline companies who have over 100 years, I think, of expertise, more than that, I think, combined in doing these kinds of big projects. And in the end, you'll see the MOU says that we want a private proponent to build that. I don't think it would be success if we have to have the federal government once again have to pay for an overpriced expensive pipeline. I think we want to create the conditions so that the private sector has confidence and will build it. So that's what we're working towards. We knew we needed to get through these first few phases, but I'm pretty confident with the people we have at the table that one or a consortium of them, once we establish that it is on the major projects list, will be willing to take this on.
You've mentioned that it's a long road. You still have to build trust. You've had the rug pulled out from you before. Pipeline aside, is the changes to the emissions cap and the clean energy regulations enough, do you think, to increase oil production in Alberta and improve the investment environment here?
Well, I think almost certainly. The problem with the emissions cap is that, especially with the interim targets of 2030 and 2035, the only way to achieve that, because we wouldn't have been able to build the carbon capture, utilization, and storage, or the fuel variety like nuclear, or have advanced direct air capture. The only way to achieve them would be to shut in production. And it wasn't just us saying that. There's several different reports that went out saying as much as 2 million barrels a day would have to be shut in by 2035. So we now have a longer time horizon to address the issues of emissions. We've a big change is that we're going to have a look at heavy oil on the basis of emissions intensity compared to other heavy barrels around the world. That is also, I think, going to be a major confidence booster. And then on the other side, when I was recently in the Middle East, I talked to a company, Taka, that had talked about wanting to do an AI data center. They were going to build their own natural gas power, but they told me because of the clean electricity regs, which meant they'd have to turn it off in 2035, they didn't even get started. And I have to wonder how many other projects of that nature didn't even get started because of the clean electricity regs. So now that there's an immediate suspension of that, there will, of course, be pending our agreement on what the tier pricing will be. But there has always been a carbon price on heavy emitters, and that included in the electricity sector. So I think we'll be able to give that injection of confidence. I guess we'll know in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. We're going to go to the phones for one and then come back to the room for our last one. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
Your first caller comes from the line of Ryan Humilty from Toronto Star. Your line is now open.
Yeah, good afternoon, Premier. Thanks for taking the question. You know, the MOU sets out obligations on both Alberta and the government. If the government of Canada lives up to its obligations, but a private proponent doesn't emerge, for the bitumen pipeline. Is Alberta still committed to increasing its carbon price and the other commitments that you've made on pathways and other projects?
Well, as I said, we have always had a carbon price. We were the first to put one in place in 2007. We have just recently made changes to TIER to allow those revenues to be recycled back to companies so that they can invest in carbon capture technology. We have put in place our ACIP program, which is our carbon capture incentive program, where we rebate 12% of the cost of any investment in carbon capture. We've got a major center in central Alberta where 10 different direct air capture projects are underway. We have signed agreements not only with the federal government, but with our fellow premiers on looking at how we would add nuclear to the grid. So all of those things are underway. All of those things will continue to go. And what we're very hopeful is that as we stage gate the development of a bitumen pipeline, we'll also do the same thing with the Pathways project. And then we'll be able to have the largest carbon capture project in the world, which I think will also be another major export opportunity for us. So I would say that we showed our commitment when we released our energy development and emissions reduction plan in April of 2023. And most of the elements that we announced then, you'll see, are enshrined in this agreement that we have today.
And then the coastal First Nations, especially, but certainly BC as well, have said so far publicly, they said they really don't support this pipeline. It seems like the MOU puts bringing those people on side in your court. Can you expand upon how you intend to do that and how you intend to see that happens?
Well, I can tell you that there are some leadership in some nations that have been vocal, absolutely. But as you can see, there are some leaders of some nations that are in this room supportive as well. And that's the nuance that happens. That will be, no matter whether it's a nation or whether it's a province or whether it's a political party, there's just different opinions on things. But what this agreement shows is that we're going to work collaboratively to work towards a bitumen pipeline to Asian markets on the West Coast. And when we arrive at a port, that will also have a tanker ban carve-out for that. So I would say that my Indigenous Relations Minister is doing tremendous work on doing the initial engagement, which will ultimately lead to a more formal consultation process. We're beginning with a spirit of goodwill, having had some success with our AIOC. I think that demonstrates credibility in having a meaningful equity ownership stake. And we've had very constructive meetings. I had a very constructive meeting you may have read with the Haisla chief and council and others yesterday, where they may not be 100% behind a bitumen pipeline, but they're excited about LNG export. They wanted us to make sure that we knew that Kitimat is a thriving port for all kinds of commodities. And so I think that that's where the relationship begins. Let's talk about areas of agreement, and then let's work through the areas of disagreement. But I think that we will find over time that there are many nations who are also interested in these kinds of projects so they can bring prosperity to their people. And that's our starting point on this.
Thank you. And if you're really quick, Premier, we might be able to squeeze in two more. Okay. We'll go to our next to the mic.
Sheila Gunn Reid with Rebel News. Just staying on the topic of British Columbia, the Prime Minister has said in the House of Commons just 2 days ago, we believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. Now, just now, after he left the signing with you, his press release says these projects will only be built in consultation and partnership with Indigenous rights holders and British Columbia. So what is the real strength of this MOU when you have a partner who keeps giving veto to British Columbia?
Well, you'll see in the agreement there's no mention of veto. I think that there obviously has to be trilateral discussions with British Columbia to find areas of common ground, and I think we will. And there's also clearly going to have to be a formal consultation process with Indigenous bands, and we're prepared to do all of that. What I have seen is that there have been a number of projects in British Columbia that may have started off with a lot of opposition that over time got a lot of enthusiasm. Look at all of the LNG projects down the coast. Look at Coastal GasLink. Look at the opportunity now for additional LNG projects. Look at even the Premier of British Columbia talking about expanding TMX. That was not the conversation that was happening 5 or 6 years ago. So I would say that some of it is in the proving. You have to.
The only reason David Eby is mentioning expanding TMX is because he doesn't want to build a new pipeline from Alberta to the west through BC. That's why he's mentioning that specifically. He's essentially doing the thing that I mentioned before. You'll get some things, but you're not going to get everything. And I believe Mark Carney, as well as David Eby, will potentially drag out this issue until it's over, right? And then Alberta will once again be in the position where the separation issue, or whatever you want to call it, grows more and more and more because the Liberal government just keeps screwing around and playing games. That's truly what I believe. Yeah, that's the only reason David Eby's like, yeah, let's get this going, because he doesn't want to deal with another pipeline going through there. That's pretty much all I gather from that one. It's a bit of a compromise for him, I guess. All right, guys. We have roughly 17 minutes until question period, or statements by members begins, and then eventually question period. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade happened. I guess yesterday they were blowing everything up, and today the actual parade happened. That would make sense, as it is Thanksgiving in the States today. So we're going to watch a bit of that. Might have another thing to go over briefly, and then we're going to head into question period. So let's get it on. Alright, so because they obviously take a long time, we're gonna do a bit of skipping here. Got a giant Mario. That is quite something, isn't it? I mean, the size of them is pretty insane. Get a little bit of the audio coming in because it's just people screaming. We don't need it full blast. And let's be real. It's either we watch the Macy's parade or we watch Elizabeth May. So I think we'll stick with the parade for now. Let's see here. We got a circus. I just want to see the inflatables. I don't really care about the band members and stuff. Oh, look at that guy on stilts. Pretty wild, pretty wacky. No idea who that is. Moving on. Giant Dora. Alright, alright. No Pikachu? Not yet. Not yet. We will be skipping through a majority of this. Looks like we got SpongeBob coming up. No idea who those people were. Probably some random influencers. Yesterday, they, I guess they were just blowing everything up. Or maybe it was a rerun from the previous year. I'm not entirely sure, but today we have the actual parade. This happened earlier this morning. I want to see that yellow floaty, the giant SpongeBob. I believe there's a new SpongeBob movie coming out, so that's probably a massive promotion for that. And we got, oh, we got Big Bird. Big Bird in the big nest. Check that out. Shout out. All of Sesame Street by the looks of it, actually. Alright, very cool. Oscar, very cool. Great American Marching Band. And I would just like to point out, they are more in sync than the Canadian military, which is very sad. The Canadian military cannot march like the marching bands from the United States. Moving forward, some flag twirlers. I have no idea what's going on there. Okay. People dressed up as the little block, the wooden blocks. Is that, Diary of a Wimpy Kid? Okay. I believe that's Greg. No, the thing we couldn't figure out. Canadian parades are boring. Yeah, Canadian parades wouldn't be anything like this, that's for sure. I don't even think we have a Thanksgiving parade. I could be wrong, but it's not to the degree like it is here in New York. Looks like we have some sort of inflatable wiener dog. Oh, the farmer's dog. Okay, that's an advertisement. Jolly Green Giant. Very cool. Eat your greens, ladies and gentlemen. They are good for you. A giant acorn, some giant pumpkins. Very cool. Oh, look who's coming up. Look who's coming up. Oh, it's Mickey Mouse. Would you take a look at that? Damn you, Mickey Mouse. Damn you. We have a massive Spider-Man inflatable. Holy crap. Take a look at this one. How the hell do they even get that through the street? Like, that's actually impressive. Holy Christ. Very impressive stuff going on here. I mean, just enormous. Moving on. We got some more marching bands that once again march better than the Canadian military. We have a soccer ball. Okay, very cool. Very cool indeed. Some sort of bowling lane, bowling alley. Okay, alright. Looks like we have a giant minion. And those look like your average Democrat protesters at a anti-Trump protest in the chicken suits there, or the turkey suits. Flapping around. We have a giant minion. Wow. Wow. Take a look at that. Very cool indeed. Very cool. We also have Elizabeth May still speaking, so we're gonna let that continue. Question period coming up very soon. What do we have here? Is that a Labubu? It's a Pop Mart. Yep, that's a... Wow. Alrighty. Moving on. Is that a giant turkey? Yes, it is. Take a look. Oh, his hat goes up and down. Very cool. Very cool indeed. I don't know what's going on here, but we're skipping through. We have another massive inflatable, followed by another marching band that marches better than the Canadian military. Very cool indeed. I don't know who this is. I can't really see the sign. Something Pandy Paws. I don't know. There you have it. Okay, a bunch of people dressed up. Random school bus. Animal people on stilts, followed by some giraffes. Very cool. The Bronx Zoo. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The zoo showing up. The zoo showing up. Very cool. Pigeons. All sorts of stuff. The guy is riding a giraffe. Or I think that's a woman. I can't tell because the camera's kind of blurry. Moving on. We got a star for the Macy's parade. We have... Oh, yeah, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Some representation. Oh, is that Smokey the Bear? What is this? Is this supposed to be like the apology to Canada or something? They got the moose and the bear? What is that? I'm just memeing around, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what that was. We got Smokey the Bear, though. Shout out. Only you can prevent government takeover. We have some policemen on horses. Very cool. We have Snoopy. Giant Snoopy. Everybody loves Snoopy. Whether he's small or giant, everybody loves him. There you go. I think I saw Pac-Man. Got a cheerleading squad, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Some sort of dancing squad. Even they march better and more in sync than the Canadian military. Stranger Things advertisement. Alright, that's kind of cool. Stranger Things is an alright series. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely up there. It was a cool series. I think the new season's coming out, so shout out to that. You know, I figured based on everything going on, why not cover the Macy's Parade? Giant Pac-Man, ladies and gentlemen. Giant Pac-Man. Very cool. I don't know what's going on there. Looks like a bunch of Frenchmen invaded New York City. Is that Paw Patrol? Oh, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Very cool. Very cool indeed. Who's that? Who is that? Busta Rhymes. I'm kind of surprised that guy is still around doing his thing. Anyway, we have Paw Patrol. I thought the show got canceled because people claimed the dogs were racist or something like that. I don't know. Quote me if I'm wrong, but maybe that was a fake thing. That was also years ago. Years and years ago. Paw Patrol on the major comeback. A bunch of people dressed in black. Okay, very cool. Out of all you could do in the parade, you dress up in all black. Interesting. Buzz Lightyear making an appearance. Check it out. Shout out Buzz. To infinity and beyond. Yeah, it's totally like wild. Yeah, it's my commentary for today as we are skipping through most of the Macy's parade. A cool star. I don't know. Toys R Us, alright. Shit's getting wacky with Toys R Us. Goku. Goku making an appearance. There you have it. Statements by members currently underway. Question period should begin in roughly 10-15 minutes. Got a bit more of the Macy's parade to go through. We have another marching. I think, honestly, the Canadian military should be watching this because look at how in sync they are. My God. Take some notes, ladies and gentlemen. Take some notes. Even the guy who is security is more in sync. Inflatable fish. Very cool. Very cool indeed. What is that? Pirates. You got a pirate ship, ladies and gentlemen. I believe we have a One Piece inflatable coming through here. Yep, Luffy from One Piece. There you go. That's pretty wild, pretty wacky, pretty crazy. Winter Olympics streamed on Peacock. Oh, it looks like we have a little bit of a traffic jam here. I believe that was a giant Shrek. I think that dragon's shooting fire. That's pretty cool. Giant Shrek in the carriage. Pirates of the Bahamas. Pirates of the New York Stock Exchange. Alright, moving forward. Moving forward. Is that, No, that is not Winnie the Pooh. I don't know who that is. Haribo Gummy Bears. The Haribo Gummy Bear mascot. Okay. And followed by another marching band. I guess these are all just universities. Yeah, that would probably make sense. ASU. Yeah, very cool indeed. Followed by... I don't know what's going on there, but they're doing their thing. Alright. What is that thing? K-pop Demon Hunter. Oh, it's okay. That's that thing. All right, very cool. Lindor chocolate. Very good chocolate. Some of the best. Highly recommend. Bluey from, I think, the show Bluey. I don't know. I just know the character Bluey. I don't know what that is. Moving on. Couple golf carts. Very cool. People dressed as robots, interesting. The Hocus Pocus walk, is that what that was? Macy's parade balloons, I think we're coming down. This cameraman needs to be fired. Holy shit, what is he filming? Looks like the average Democrat voter is back once again, followed by another school of cheerleaders and such. Very cool indeed. Looks like we have a Lego set. Yeah, cool, cool. And we have the Liberal Caucus walking through right now. Yep, that looks about right. Oh, followed by some more Liberal Caucus members. Giant babies, yep. A giant fox, okay. I respect it. Very cool indeed. We have a high school band marching once again. A lot of bands, a lot of universities or schools making their appearance. Kinder Eggs. I thought Kinder was banned in the United States, but I could be wrong. Maybe they don't sell the eggs, just the chocolate. Like the bar form. We have Santa. Actually, that's not Santa. I don't know what that was, but we're moving onward. Don't know what that is. Candyland, I'm just gonna call it that. We have a giant... Is that Pikachu riding a Pokeball? Actually don't know what's going on there. It's a Pikachu and an Eevee, I believe, riding a giant sausage-like Pokeball. Very cool indeed. Another marching band. Dude, look at how uniform they are. Come on. Come on. It's very impressive. Very impressive indeed. Hallmark. Okay. And I think that's the Pillsbury Doughboy. That's a giant inflatable once again. And we are sort of heading to the end of the parade here. We had a little cart there, some people dressed up as bakers. A giant candy cane, very cool. I don't know what that is, but we're moving onward. That guy's carrying an Apple product. I don't... Just walking around with a laptop. Alright. We got Minnie Mouse. And a couple more Macy's stars. Oh, we got the police. There we go. New York City Police Department. New York's finest. Very good. Very good. That horse just took a massive shit in the middle of the street. Alright. Had to play that one back to double check. There's now guys shoveling the shit off the street. Alright. Moving onward. More balloons. Oh, there's Santa. There we go. There's the man of the hour. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The end of the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade. Moving on to the House of Commons.
Strengthen neighborhoods through compassionate service. And St. Mary's the Protectress has been a place of belonging for generations of Ukrainian Canadians. And St. Paul's Anglican carries a rich pioneer history sustained through war, hardship, and renewal. These contributions reflect what faith communities across Canada do every single day. Yet many places of worship continue to face vandalism and arson. No faith tradition should fear for the safety of its sacred places. And that is why we support robust protections for places of worship, including measures in Conservative Bill C-255 to hold offenders accountable. As we honor 100 and 200 years of faith and service in our community, let us recommit to safeguarding the places that give Canadians hope and spiritual refuge.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as November ends, let's look back at the tragic data about men's mental and physical health in Canada. Too many men are dying too young from preventable causes. Men account for 75% of suicides, 72% of opioid deaths. They are at a higher risk for cardiac disease, chronic lung disease, and many cancers. Yet stigma and pride in being macho prevents them from seeking help. 65% of men say they delay seeing a doctor for symptoms of mental and physical health. Men's health is not a partisan issue. It's a health imperative. Delayed care costs lives and harms families. As a mother of 3 men, I say, let us break the silence, remove the stigma, advocate for research funding and mental health supports, and ensure confidential access to care. Let us speak up and speak out. Move men's health out of the shadows. Protect and support our fathers, husbands, and sons.
Bravo. Bravo. The honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, 75 years ago, a bricklayer arrived from Canadian shores from Italy seeking a better life. 75 years later, the granddaughter of this bricklayer serves in Canada's Parliament. As a daughter of Italian immigrants, I am proud to represent my community of King Vaughan. On Tuesday, I had the honour of being elected chair of the Canada-Italian Interparliamentary Group. I look forward to working with all parliamentarians and with Ambassador Cantanillo to advance diplomatic relationships between our two nations and explore new opportunities. Canada and Italy share a deep connection through over 1.6 million Canadians of Italian descent. Italian Canadians have left their mark on communities from coast to coast to coast. Canada's Conservatives stand united and ready to work with everyone for the best interest of Canada. Grazie a tutti I nostri cugini italiani.
The honourable member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, in November 2023, the Health Committee tabled a unanimous report calling for a breast implant registry and recognition of breast...
So, to no shock at all, Mark Carney will not be showing up to question period today. Just thought I'd put that one out there.
Canada should be ashamed of neglecting the health of several generations of women in this way. Cancer, anaplastic large cell lymphoma, debilitating fatigue, pain, severe weakness, stiffness, memory and concentration problems, rheumatoid arthritis, and so on. These are all symptoms of breast implant illness. Is this what they want for women? The Minister for Health must exercise her political leadership so that women like Julie Elliott, Terry McGregor, Nancy Pratt, Isabelle Gaston, and all those who are suffering have not suffered in vain. And above all, to prevent other women from suffering as well. When will the Minister finally take action?
The honourable member for Mount Royal.
Last month, the Quebec National Assembly adopted Bill 2.
Clinics in my riding and nearby warned that they may need to close their doors as a direct result of Law 2. Le financement gouvernemental.
Government funding and the salaries of the doctors who fund these public clinics will decrease significantly, while these clinics will be forced, under supervision and sanctions, to see more patients more quickly with fewer resources and for longer hours.
Clinics care for over 415,000 people in the West End of Montreal and offered more than 1 million appointments last year. Wow. They employ almost 400 doctors, and 6 to 8 weeks from now, many of these clinics may close, not because of choice, but because of Law 2. If the law forces them to close, their patients will have no choice but to go to already overcrowded emergency rooms. C'est catastrophique pour les patients.
This is catastrophic for the patients of my riding and patients throughout Quebec. I call on the Quebec government to amend Law 2.
The honourable member for Richmond Centre Marpole.
Mr. Speaker, British Columbians are now seeing the consequences of this Liberal government's reckless hard drug decriminalization. That's right. Even Premier David Eby has admitted, I was wrong. It wasn't the right policy. Communities in Richmond, Vancouver, and across the province are experiencing open drug use, rising disorder, and families increasingly afraid to walk in their own neighborhoods. This crisis did not happen by accident. It happened because the federal Liberal government granted BC an exemption that allowed the possession of fentanyl, crack, cocaine, and meth on our streets. Frontline officers, health experts, and local leaders have been pleading for help, yet this government still refuses to take responsibility. Will the Liberals end this hard drug experiment now?
The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honour the life of Colleen Jones, a Canadian curling great and a fixture in Canadian broadcasting for decades. A 6-time national champion and 2-time world champion, Colleen was a trailblazer whose excellence inspired generations, especially young women who saw in her what was possible. Beyond the rink, she brought warmth, humor, and unmistakable energy to television, connecting with viewers as naturally as she competed on the ice. On a personal note, I fondly recall the lighthearted banter she once shared with my father, Don Duguid, during major curling broadcasts, moments that captured the camaraderie and joy at the heart of our sport. Mr. Speaker, Canada has lost a champion, a storyteller, and a role model. I ask all members to join me in offering condolences to her family, her teammates, and the many Canadians she inspired. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
In Kitchener, families are making heartbreaking sacrifices just to get by. Alex, a father, told me he eats barely half a meal a day, so his children can have 3 meals a day. Kirby, who not only has to worry about his children but also his grandfather, shared with me that if he feeds them, he waits until they're finished, and if there's none left, he'll just have to wait until tomorrow. This is not okay. Yet this budget offers nothing to ease their burden. Instead, it piles on unprecedented debt that will drive inflation higher and push grocery prices further out of reach for Canadians. Canadians do not need empty promises. They need affordability, dignity, and hope. We cannot accept a budget that ignores the reality that Canadians and our children are going hungry. They deserve better.
The honourable member for Ottawa Valley Gloucester. Mr. Speaker, it is with great sadness that I pay tribute to Rolande Fauché, a trusted, strong and passionate woman who was not afraid to speak her mind. A tireless activist, sociologist and researcher, she dedicated her life to defending the interests of the Francophone community and promoting education and culture in Ontario. Rolande was not only a builder and community leader, she was an inspiring female role model and a remarkable presence for all those, including myself, who had the good fortune to know her. Her courage and bold vision paved the way for cultural and educational initiatives such as the implementation of French-language school management, La Nouvelle Scène, and the campaign to save Montfort Hospital. She was a friend, a confidant, and a partner in crime. An exceptional Franco-Ontarian, she leaves behind a lasting legacy that continues to shine a light on our community. Watch over us all, Rolande, especially your children, Luc and Chantal and Alain, and all your family and close ones.
The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, 2.2 million Canadians line up at food banks every single month, and the unemployment rate is 6.9%. Yet, as chair of Brookfield, the Prime Minister helped the company avoid $6.5 billion in Canadian taxes through offshore tax havens. While the Prime Minister dropped the most expensive budget in Canadian history outside COVID, the Liberal government has shown us their top priority, making Brookfield richer. Mr. Speaker, Canadians need transparency about the total incentive structure acting on our Prime Minister. Canadians need to know that this doubling of Trudeau's deficit is serving our total national interest, not simply those in the Prime Minister's circle. Mr. Speaker, Canadians need to know, is our Prime Minister incentivized to serve all Canadians?
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the life and legacy of a true Nova Scotian legend. Throughout her decades-long careers in curling and journalism, Colleen Jones broke down barrier after barrier, smashing through glass ceilings. A 2-time world champion, 6-time national champion, and 16-time provincial champion, having played more Scotties games than any curler in Canadian history, she was a staple in Canadian athletics. If that weren't enough, Colleen had a 40-year career at CBC, where she made history as the first female sports anchor in Halifax. In 2015, she said the following: "My feeling is, do the things that make us happy now, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Appreciate life, don't sweat the small stuff, and enjoy the ride." I only met Colleen a couple of times, but I think she took her own advice, and I'm very hopeful that she enjoyed her ride. I'd ask all members of the House to join me in remembering this incredible woman and paying our respects to her family, friends, and loved ones. Thank you.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
In what year will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
The Honourable Government House Seat.
Mr. Speaker, the world is changing rapidly. The United States, the world's largest economy, is fundamentally reshaping all of its trade relationships, causing major disruption and upheaval for Canadians. Right. It's time to transform our economy from one that is reliant on a single trading partner to one that is stronger, more self-sufficient, and resilient to global shocks. To these ends, Canada and Alberta share the same ambitions. Diversify our export markets, make Canada an energy superpower, and build a stronger, cleaner, more independent, more competitive economy.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
All right, he can't tell us the year in which construction will begin. Can he tell us in what decade will construction begin on a new pipeline to the Pacific?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, today is a really important day because we are taking important steps forward on cooperative federalism. The Prime Minister has been clear, and we've always known, we cannot reach our climate objectives if we are not working with all of the provinces and territories. Today, Alberta has committed to work with us on clean electricity regulations. They have committed in this agreement to work towards a stronger industrial carbon price. They have committed to work with us on methane regulations. Those are important steps forward for Canada to move towards its climate objectives, and we will keep doing that work.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So they don't know the year that construction will begin. They don't know the decade that construction will begin. And the Environment Minister couldn't even bring herself to utter the word pipeline in her answer to the question. And what today's deal allows a proposal for a pipeline to go to an office in 7 months, which will then be studied for 2 years, after which the Prime Minister will give a pipeline veto to the BC NDP Premier, who's already said he's against. Isn't this pipeline going to be built in the year never?
Actually, Mr. Speaker, this is a big, large, great, grand day for Canada. Our government has reached an important MOU with Danielle Smith, the Premier, and the province of Alberta that creates an energy transition in all aspects of energy. It sets the stage for an industrial transformation. It will make Canada stronger, more independent, more resilient, and more sustainable, and it will include the largest carbon capture project in the world. It will mean all of Alberta's energy resources are among the lowest energy intensive in the world.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Tell us when a pipeline will be under construction. Let's just unpack the Prime Minister's allusion here. He's telling the Keep It in the Ground caucus of the Liberal Party that they just need to be quiet because there won't be a pipeline anyway. What he will do is delay it for several years until after a prospective election, during which he can dangle a possible pipeline in front of the people, but after which he can hand veto power that is not in the Constitution over to the BC NDP Premier, who will block the thing from ever happening. Isn't it true that this isn't a pipeline? It's a pipe dream.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the country, indeed the world, is calling out for serious leadership, for cooperative leadership, for leadership that brings people together and parties together. I don't think this leader has any conception of what is required to do the kind of development that he is proposing. Of course we will consult and deal with the Premier, the duly elected Premier of British Columbia. Of course we will and have a duty to consult with First Nations. Of course we will do this in a cooperative way. We'll do it in the Canadian way, and we'll do it in the right way, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, they will stand in the way, is what they will do. We know that the only thing stopping a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific is the Prime Minister. Let's unpack the legality of it. The Constitution, Section 9210A, gives the federal government exclusive approval power for a pipeline. Bill C-5, a bill the Prime Minister pushed through the House of Commons, and we even supported him, gives him the power to approve it. So we only need him to do one thing for this pipeline to happen. Get out of the way. Will he do it?
Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, when Canadians elected our government, they were clear. They wanted to see us build a strong Canada, and they wanted to see us build it well and build it together. They wanted to see that we could work together as a country, and that means that we do things like this agreement with Alberta that helps us move forward on industrial carbon pricing, moves forward on methane regulations, moves forward on clean electricity, but also respects other jurisdictions like the province of British Columbia, with which we must seek agreement.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, she accidentally told the truth, Mr. Speaker. She didn't say that it moves forward on a pipeline. She said it moves forward on an industrial carbon tax. A carbon tax that will increase the cost of everything it takes to build a home. So it's a tax on homes. On everything it takes to grow food. So it's a tax on food. It's a tax that drives production out, paychecks down, and the cost of living up. Meanwhile, it does not move forward with a pipeline. We as Conservatives believe in clearing the way to get pipelines built. In other words, we would build a pipeline without a carbon tax. They would build a carbon tax without a pipeline.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I suspect Canadians are straining to find the Leader of the Opposition credible on any of this. What this Memorandum of Understanding does is create a carbon capture and storage system that will lead the world. It will include, of course, bringing together of partners with whom we have a duty to consult and with other jurisdictions. It will create jobs in the electrical system. It will create construction jobs. It will create opportunity across Western Canada, Mr. Speaker, but most importantly will make Canada an energy superpower. Why can't the Leader of the Opposition see that?
The Honourable Member for Belleuil.
Allergic to pipelines.
Mr. Speaker, on November 27th, today, this government will have completely betrayed climate goals and people who have suffered from climate events. To help the leaders of oil companies who are often American, the Prime Minister has signed an agreement that will force him to ignore the leader of BC, ignore First Nations. So, with this happening to BC, will Quebec be next? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we should not be surprised that the leader of the Bloc Québécois looks for any excuse to sow division within Canada. What we're seeing today is the same thing as we do with Quebec, which is cooperate, work together so that federalism can create economic opportunity. Yes, a renewable energy, a climate of opportunity for young people. How can the leader of the Bloc Québécois object to that? The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Let's not even pretend to claim that it could be because they haven't read their own documents. Because if you read it, it's pretty clear. They claim that they want a single Canadian economy, which is not the economy of BC or Quebec, but which instead belongs to Ottawa and Calgary, ignoring legislation, ignoring environmental assessment, ignoring First Nations, ignoring provincial jurisdiction. Ignoring all that, the Prime Minister is going to impose a business plan that only serves oil companies and himself. The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has been very clear here in this House. He stated that we also need an agreement with BC and with First Nations. But in addition, this agreement includes significant commitments to the province of Alberta regarding the industrial carbon pricing system for methane regulations for clean energy, and we will continue to work closely with all provinces in order to fight climate change. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. It sounds like I just heard the Minister of the Environment say that she agrees with this odious agreement, which has abandoned the oil and gas emissions cap and even electricity production within what she just said. Yesterday, I asked whether this government would formally and solemnly promise to never force BC to accept a pipeline or force First Nations to accept it. The government House leader, who often says the opposite of the truth, rose and said yes, he should have simply remained seated. The Honourable Government House Leader. On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, I am getting up. I am standing up. I am standing like all of my colleagues on this side of the House because we have work to do. We have the work of building a nation, working together with provinces, consulting First Nations, and building a climate framework which will enable us to reach net zero by 2050. And we will do that by working with all Canadians from coast to coast to coast. That is what we are going to do. That's what voters asked us to do. And no matter what the Bloc Québécois says, we are here to build Canada strong. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, in Canada's conflict of, in the Canadian government conflict of interest legislation, when it comes to the regulations that public office holders must respect, it is clearly indicated that to favor a person or organization through a person who has been retained to represent them is not allowed. The federal Liberal member for Laval-les-Îles is currently being investigated by Quebec's chief electoral officer because he participated in Ottawa flim-flammery. Can the Prime Minister confirm that none of his ministers or members are part of
What the hell is
flim-flammery?
Ottawa flim-flammery?
Next question. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I once again am coming back to federal conflict of interest legislation. We know that the federal MP for Laval-les-Îles is currently being investigated by the Quebec Chief Electoral Officer. That is a fact. So my question is simple. Can the Prime Minister confirm that no member of his cabinet or caucus are part of that scandal?
Uh-oh, another scandal. Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, that is not a question that has to do with the administration of this government. But I can confirm that all of the members and ministers on this side of the House carefully follow the ethics code, which is one of the strictest in the world.
For Windsor West.
Speaker, people in Windsor are tired of hearing promises. They just want to know why this Prime Minister stopped fighting for them. He said he would go elbows up at the U.S., but when he failed, he shrugged and said, who cares? Workers in Windsor care. Our auto sector and suppliers care. Conservatives care. Meanwhile, the U.S. signed an $80 billion nuclear deal with Brookfield, the Prime Minister's own company. Why is it that every time the Prime Minister travels, business only gets better for Brookfield, while Canadians are left out in the cold?
Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, I find that member's suggestion that the Conservatives care interesting, because the Conservatives voted against 18,000 construction jobs at Darlington Nuclear Project, 9,700 jobs at the Northwest Transmission Line in BC, over 10,000 jobs at the LNG2 facility, 5,000 jobs at the graphite mine in Quebec. These investments represent real progress for workers. So here's something that we should know. Conservatives vote against jobs and Canadians. Our new government stands up for workers and jobs.
Good job.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, last week we found out this government sent 500 million tax dollar payers to the European Space Agency. And guess who owns half the UK campus that money is going to? You guessed it right, Mr. Speaker, Brookfield. All the same time, Windsor workers are being shut out of plants, contracts are stalling, and families are worried about their future. Why is the Prime Minister sending money overseas, helping a company he's tied to, instead of fighting to protect jobs in winter, which has the highest unemployment rate in the country, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
That member voted against the largest infrastructure investment in Canadian history, Mr. Speaker. Jobs for the IBEW, jobs for the carpenters, jobs for the area, jobs for the union members in his riding, Mr. Speaker. We will be building big, building with steel, building with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Mr. Speaker. When will the Conservatives get on board with Canadian workers, Mr. Speaker?
Who cares?
Mr. Speaker, there is yet another scandal, Mr. Speaker. In the federal budget, this Liberal government is prioritizing money for modular housing. So is Brookfield. The Prime Minister is prioritizing nuclear energy. So is Brookfield. The Prime Minister is prioritizing funds for rail transport. So is Brookfield. The Prime Minister is prioritizing data storage. And guess what? Brookfield, too. So, Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister sacrificing our national interests for his own personal profit? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, every time my colleague rises in the House, I recognize that he has remarkable histrionic qualities, but nonetheless, what he said doesn't make a lot of sense. When his leader was housing minister, he only managed to get 6 units of affordable housing built. On this side of the House, we will be working hard to build affordable housing, to increase housing supply, reducing pressures for first-time buyers. That's good news for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. I'll give some more examples, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister is prioritizing AI, so is Brookfield. The Prime Minister is prioritizing clean energy, so is Brookfield. Last week, we learned that the Liberals put $500 million taxpayer money, gave that money to the European Space Agency. And who owns 50% of the campus? Brookfield, of course. Why is the Prime Minister sending our jobs abroad, our money into space? Why is he placing his own financial interests before those of all Canadians?
L'honorable ministre.
Monsieur le Président, je me demande aux intérêts de qui il pensait quand il a voté contre le budget qui prévoit une baisse d'impôts pour 22 millions de Canadiens, Monsieur le Président, le régime canadien de soins dentaires, l'allocation canadienne pour enfants, des emplois au port de Québec, au port de Saguenay, le développement économique, des emplois dans sa région au chantier des vies, Monsieur le Président. À qui il pensait certainement pas à son monde. Merci.
Si j'ai bien compris,
Interpretation, the microphone was off.
The interpreter fell asleep.
Interpretation will now resume.
Medicine Hat Cardston.
Speaker, the Prime Minister's Brookfield conflicts of interest continue to grow. But keeping his shares, options, and performance pay worth millions of dollars, every major decision the PM says he makes for Canada, like nuclear deals, AI, EU space agencies, and many more, all have the potential to make himself wealthier. While Canadians suffer, business for Brookfield has never been better. Right. When will the Prime Minister admit his conflicts, divest his shares, and prioritize Canadians' best interest rather than his own portfolio investments?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Today, the announcement with the Prime Minister and the Premier of Alberta is good news for workers all across this country. It's good news for workers in Alberta. It's certainly good news for skilled tradespeople and the young apprentices coming up, learning these trades. Mr. Speaker, this is an announcement about prosperity. It's shared prosperity, Mr. Speaker. It scopes in Indigenous people and creates wealth. I certainly hope that member understands this is something that will deeply benefit not just his province, but the entire country.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister's green facade is crumbling now that he's announced another dirty oil pipeline. And beneath that green facade, we're just seeing the black of oil, just as much as with the Conservatives, and perhaps even darker, because over 10 years in power, Stephen Harper did not manage to bring in a pipeline. Whereas the Liberals announced a second one this morning. with perhaps more to come. They seem to have given up completely on meeting their climate emissions targets. When it comes to the environment, are they worse than the Conservatives, or is it all just the same thing? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We can only meet our climate targets by working closely with the provinces and territories. Canadians elected us because they wanted to see us working with the provinces and territories. And that's what we're doing with this agreement. Alberta has committed to working with us on an industrial carbon price, on methane emissions, and on clean electricity. That is what we have to do that is what we have to do to fight climate change, and that's what we will do. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, it's hard to believe that the Minister of the Environment is defending pipelines. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Let's look at what our so-called Green Prime Minister is doing. He put an end to carbon pricing. He has given up on the zero-emission vehicle targets. He has put an end to the emissions cap for the oil and gas sector, billions of dollars in tax credits for fossil fuel, boycotted COP30, given up on environmental assessments for oil projects under C5. And today we have yet another pipeline which will undermine the oil tankers moratorium in a marine protected area. Is this the Liberal government, or is this Donald Trump's policy? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected us to build Canada strong, and that is what we're going to do. Let's look at the projects we've brought forward. We brought in a hydroelectric project in Iqaluit. We brought in a clean electricity project in the northern part of BC. We are going to continue doing the work. Today is yet another time when we are continuing to maintain an industrial carbon price. We are continuing to have methane regulations, clean electricity regulations, not just regulations, but what we are going to build. The Honourable Member for Richmond North Vaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister said, who cares, when asked what was happening to the negotiations with the US. And he backed down on the digital services tax without getting anything in return, at least not for Canadians, because a few days later, the Americans suddenly signed an $80 billion with whom? With Brookfield, the Prime Minister's company. Why is he sacrificing the interests of Canadians and promoting his own? I know what they're going to say. They're going to talk about the budget, pipelines, housing. It's all very well, but they're never going to actually answer my question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker, I have good news for all workers in Canada. The big projects that we're bringing in will generate great jobs throughout the country. Good unionized jobs in all areas. And that will help all of Canada move forward. Thank you.
Member for York Centre.
Who cares? Who cares, said the Prime Minister when asked about contact with the US President on a trade deal. Everyday Canadians care. Everyday Canadians who are going broke or who are losing their jobs because of this trade uncertainty. In my city of Toronto, investment, commerce, and real estate froze. Only 25 new condos were sold last month in a city of 3 million. Other than Brookfield, nobody can make a decision because of the uncertainty caused by this Prime Minister's failure to get a trade deal. So instead of being dismissive and derisive, why doesn't the Prime Minister keep his word and finally get a trade deal?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Yesterday, I stood with the Prime Minister and the President of Dofasco as we announced additional supports for steel, for lumber, Mr. Speaker, for the communities and the organizations and their employees that have been deeply impacted by tariffs. And Mr. Speaker, they're not only encouraged by our support, but they're excited about the future. And you know why, Mr. Speaker? Because they have an opportunity through Buy Canada policies to pivot their products and sell to Canadian projects. And Mr. Speaker, that's what Canadians expect, that we invest in ourselves, that we take care of ourselves, something these guys can't get.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill South.
This Prime Minister went from promising elbows up to throwing his hands up, saying who cares the moment the President pushed back. He caved on the digital services tax, abandoned counter tariffs, and walked away from the softwood legal fight, leaving Canadian workers totally defenseless. We thought he got nothing in return, but it turns out he got nothing for Canadians, because just days later, the Americans signed an $80 billion nuclear deal with his former company, none other, Brookfield. So while Canadian workers are left standing in the penalty box, the Prime Minister's friends are skating away with the puck. Why is this Liberal Prime Minister trading away Canada's national interests while advancing his own personal interests?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, again, that member voted against the budget, which is going to see the largest investments in infrastructure across this great country, Mr. Speaker. We're going to be building homes, building community centers, hospitals, bridges, roads, Mr. Speaker, all with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Canadian unionized worker. Mr. Speaker, every day the Conservatives come in here and they vote against jobs and they vote against Canadians.
Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, that member did not answer the question, so I'm going to ask it again. The Prime Minister caved on counter tariffs, on digital services taxes, on legal disputes with the softwood lumber. We thought he was getting nothing for Canadians, but it turns out he was getting lots for his company, Brookfield. Days after he was in the White House, the Americans signed an $80 billion nuclear reactor deal with Brookfield. Why is it that everywhere the Prime Minister goes, Brookfield gets a sweet deal and Canadians get no deal? Why?
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, speaking about trade, Canadians know that 2/3 of our economy is powered by trade. We're opening doors for Canadian products to reach new global markets. We signed new trade deals with Ecuador, Indonesia, an investment agreement with UAE, securing $70 billion commitment for more investments in Canada. This is what this government is focused on, is opening new doors and more opportunities for Canadian workers and businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister explain to Canadians why every time we ask about a conflict of interest with Brookfield, his answer is basically, who cares? Nothing to see here. Just ignore the fact that I used to run the place. Because Canadians are starting to wonder, if Brookfield were any closer to this government, would it need a visitor's pass or just a set of cabinet keys? So my question is simple. How can Canadians trust decisions aren't being made in the boardroom instead of the House of Commons? Or is this Liberal government now offering loyalty points for conflict of interest?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians made a decision on April 28th between two visions for this country. A vision of hope, a vision of leadership versus slogans and division. Our Prime Minister is a world economic and business leader. He has traveled the world building up relationships and signing deals to build our economy, something that leaders never worked a day in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Peterborough.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we know meaningful consultation with Indigenous right holders is essential to protecting rights, supporting sustainable development, and building respectful long-term relationships. Could the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations share how early and ongoing engagement with Indigenous communities is helping improve our federal approach to consultation?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All major projects will only proceed after meaningful consultation with Indigenous rights holders. We cannot and will not move forward at the expense of Indigenous rights. Budget 2025 invests $10.1 million in the federal initiative on consultation. This includes funding for consultation protocols, which set out clear, mutually agreed processes for how communities want to be engaged, making consultations more efficient and respectful. We have also invested in Indigenous-led resource centers, which provide the research, technical advice, and expertise communities need.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals killed the Northern Gateway pipeline project, making Canada more dependent on the U.S. Now this Prime Minister is putting on a big show, but he's setting up another process for a pipeline to fail with new hurdles and hoops, and worst of all, a massive increase to the industrial carbon tax. The proposed pipeline is never going to happen because this Prime Minister is giving a veto to the BC Premier. But what is guaranteed to happen after April 1st is Albertans will pay a very real and very massive hike to the industrial carbon tax. Why is this Prime Minister more intent on hiking carbon taxes instead of building pipelines?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
It's perplexing to us over here why they keep talking about some supposed veto by the BC Premier when, in fact, of course, we will deal with the people and the province of British Columbia. But what they don't mention is the signature of the Premier of Alberta on a memorandum of understanding that commits us to consulting provinces, consulting First Nations, building out clean and renewable technologies, an electric grid, and building and creating opportunity for young Western Canadians for generations to come.
For Regina Capel.
It doesn't matter how many signatures they put on that MOU if they give a giant veto stamp to the British Columbia Premier, Mr. Speaker. Instead of just repealing all the Liberal leave-it-in-the-ground laws that killed energy projects, this Prime Minister has just unveiled a new process that is designed to fail. He's giving an unconstitutional veto to the BC Premier. He's forcing Albertans to pay billions to put air into the ground, and now he's hiking the industrial carbon tax. Every time the Liberals hike those carbon taxes, everything gets more expensive. Why is this government forcing through a massive hike to the carbon tax instead of just getting out of the way?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
As Canadians watch this debate unfold, Mr. Speaker, they will take note of lines like putting air into the ground. In fact, we are putting carbon into the ground. We are taking it out of the atmosphere, making our production of energy resources less carbon intensive and putting carbon, in fact, underground, therefore committing Canada in the fight against climate change. Mr. Speaker, it's very interesting, and I know Canadians will be following this debate with great interest, and the slogans of the Conservatives will be something that they won't forget.
Honourable Member for Ponoka Didsbury.
Mr. Speaker, the current Prime Minister was the advisor to the last Prime Minister, and under his watch, no private company was able to build a pipeline. Not TC Energy, not Enbridge, not Kinder Morgan, just the Canadian taxpayer. Now we learn that Alberta must initiate a carbon capture project via the Pathways Alliance in exchange for a pipeline. And who has a significant stake in Entropy, one of the leading Pathways carbon capture companies? Well, it's none other than the Prime Minister's company, Brookfield.
Oh, wow.
Which begs the question, is the only way anything can be built in Canada is if Brookfield profits?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the owners of the Pathways project for carbon capture and storage are in fact 6 oil and gas companies, all of whom operate in the province of Alberta and employ thousands of...
The Honourable Member for Ponoka Didsbury.
We know that the Prime Minister has been meeting with Brookfield executives behind closed doors. This is the same Prime Minister who served as board chair of Brookfield Asset Management. And now we learn that he won't allow Alberta to build a pipeline unless it initiates a $16.5 billion carbon capture project where Brookfield profits. The taxes and royalties from a pipeline should be used for doctors, nurses, roads, schools, police, housing, and securing our country. But instead, billions will now pour into the coffers of corporate giants and liberal insiders, including, of course, Brookfield. How much revenue does the Prime Minister have to divert to his own company before he demands that Canada just simply change its name to Brookfield?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think the members across, and maybe in particular those members from the province of Alberta, really underestimate how strongly their constituents feel about having a plan to reduce our carbon emissions, reduce the intensity of our energy production, to, yes, lead the world in carbon capture and storage, to build an energy grid throughout Western Canada that makes sure renewable energy gets across Western Canada, and most importantly, they underestimate the hopes of the parents of young Albertans who want to see a future for them in that province, and that's what this thing does today.
The honourable member for Cloverdale-Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's own cabinet and caucus are fighting over this pipeline announcement. Ministers are worried, BC Liberal caucus members are seething and angry, and leaks are coming out by the hour. Meanwhile, Canadians know the real issue. Without a pipeline to the Pacific, the United States is basically our only market for Canadian oil. We cannot reach global buyers until we have coastal access. When will the Prime Minister stop managing caucus drama and start using his authority that he already has to guarantee a pipeline built to the coast?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, today is an important day because this MOU means jobs in clean energy, jobs building data centers, jobs building the largest carbon capture project in Canada. Mr. Speaker, jobs for young people, good union jobs for the building trades, for the IBW, for the ironworkers, for LIUNA, for the UA, for the millwrights, for the workers who build this country every day.
The honourable member for Cloverdale-Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, approving a nation-building project like a pipeline to the coast is the Prime Minister's responsibility. It sits squarely in the federal government's hands. But instead of owning that responsibility, the Prime Minister is letting the NDP Premier in BC have a veto. And he's doing it to calm the anger in his own caucus, not to move the country forward. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop hiding behind the NDP Premier and make the call that only his government has the jurisdiction to make?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, that member is a British Columbia MP. Is she seriously suggesting that the people and the government of British Columbia should have no say about a piece of infrastructure that will go across the entire breadth of that province? It's very interesting to me that that member, who represents British Columbians, would want to subtract the voice of her own provincial government from that debate. For that matter, subtract the voice of First Nations.
Anita Anand looks so bored. She looks like she's just done. She should probably resign.
Cooperatively.
The honourable member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, is the Prime Minister facing open rebellion? A Liberal MP told CBC News that their caucus is seething and angry over a pipeline. No wonder the Prime Minister keeps flip-flopping. One day he's for a pipeline, the next day he claims it's up to BC NDP for David Eby. The Constitution is absolutely clear that the sole authority over pipelines is the Prime Minister. Is he breaking his promise to no pipeline David Eby, or will he break his promise to build it through delays, over-regulation, and endless consultations?
Wow. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, once again, a British Columbia Member of Parliament standing up, wishing to subtract the voice of his own provincial government, the duly elected government of the people of British Columbia, who wish to have a say over a development of infrastructure that would span the entire breadth of that province. I think when that member thinks a little more seriously about this issue, he will agree that cooperative federalism and working with provinces, including Alberta and British Columbia, on things like this historic announcement today are the right way to go.
The honourable member for Peace River, Westlock.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are looking for collaboration, no doubt, but the Prime Minister went around to wave just another piece of paper that promises a potential pipeline, maybe sometime in the future, but in reality it guarantees nothing. I can tell you that the only thing that was guaranteed today was that Albertans and Canadians will be continued to pay more with an industrial carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are looking for a guarantee. So the simple question is, Can the Prime Minister guarantee what year will shovels be in the ground on this proposed pipeline?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, two British Columbian MPs who want to subtract the voice of their provincial government. Now an Albertan MP who questions the wisdom of the Conservative Premier of Alberta, whose signature is still wet on a memorandum of understanding that comprehensively sets out an economic path forward for her province, for the young people who wish to create an economic future for themselves in that province. Mr. Speaker, I'm amazed that these Conservative MPs from British Columbia and Alberta want to deny their own provincial governments the ability to create an economic future in Western Canada.
The Honourable Member for Airdrie Cochrane.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there is still no construction date for a pipeline, and the Prime Minister blames everyone else. The BC government, the First Nations, anyone but himself. Of course, it's really the leave it in the ground members of his own caucus that are trying to stop it. Where is Guibo anyway? But the Prime Minister could approve an oil pipeline to the Pacific without a carbon tax, without delays, without any excuses. Very true. The proof's in the pudding, and it's not a pipeline until it's built. So will the Prime Minister tell Canadians today, when will shovels be in the ground on this oil pipeline? Just give us a year.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, it's been interesting to see the Conservatives have a newfound interest in Canada's Constitution. They point out on occasion the federal government has certain authorities in this respect, but they have not taken care to actually read the entirety of the provision they so routinely cite, which similarly empowers provincial governments to actually build the infrastructure necessary to operate a pipeline in this country. They similarly ignore Section 35 of the Constitution, which guarantees the inherent and treaty rights of Indigenous peoples in this country and requires the government to consult with rights holders who may be impacted. We can build this country if we work together. It's a shame the Conservatives, after many opportunities to govern, have failed to learn that lesson.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
Mr. Speaker, the people of Hamilton know Canadian steel is an integral part of building a secure, sovereign Canada. Everything from homes to defence requires a strong...
Member, I'll let the Honourable Member start over, but without gesticulation. The Honourable Member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people of Hamilton know Canadian steel is an integral part of building a secure, sovereign Canada. Everything from homes to defence requires a strong industrial steel sector. With the announcement yesterday, it's clear that our government is focused on building Canada strong, Canadian steel to build Canadian products, building the strongest economy in the G7. Can the Minister of Jobs and Families...
Excuse me, the Honourable Member from the top, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
My God.
The people of Hamilton know Canadian steel is an integral part of building a secure, sovereign Canada. Everything from homes to defence requires a strong industrial steel sector. With the announcement yesterday, it's clear our government is focused on building Canada strong. Canadian steel to build Canadian products, building the strongest economy in the G7. Can the Minister...
Obviously, some members want to hear this over and over again. So from the top.
The people of Hamilton know Canadian steel...
I swear to God, I have never seen this MP stand up and say one thing and he's gotten more time on the camera than probably ever before. Holy Christ, let's get a move on.
Clear that our government is focused on building Canada strong. Canadian steel from Canadian products, building the strongest economy in the G7. Can the Minister of Jobs and Families please tell this House how our government is supporting steelworkers as we transition to buy Canadian industrial self-reliance?
Now we have to hear the answer. So the Honourable Minister of...
Finally, Mr. Speaker, Hamilton gets a voice in
The honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Hamilton gets a voice in the House of Commons with this strong MP who had to repeat his question 4 times. How disrespectful to the workers of Hamilton, who are really struggling and working so hard to pivot to new product and to new markets. And that's why standing beside DeFasco yesterday, Mr. Speaker, one of the backbones of our steel industry here in Canada, and the Prime Minister, as we continue to support that industry to pivot to new markets and to new product, was so important. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we'll listen to the steel industry.
The honourable member for Haliburton-Kawartha Lakes.
The Cowichan Court ruling in the British Columbia Supreme Court is causing real damage in Richmond. Banks are pulling back, buyers are walking away, investment is on hold, and families and businesses are being left in limbo. On October 23rd, Richmond Council urgently asked the Attorney General to protect private property rights. This Liberal government didn't even bother to respond. And a few days ago, the Richmond Council passed another motion demanding immediate federal action to mitigate the harm to affected residents. Why is the government abandoning the people whose homes and livelihoods are now at risk?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous
Thank you, Mr.
Relations.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada disagrees with the BC Supreme Court's ruling and appealed it on September 8th. We're reviewing potential legal arguments and all options are on the table. Further legal clarity is required to address the decision, particularly relating to private property rights. We will continue to work collaboratively with all parties to uphold the principles of reconciliation, transparency, and legal responsibility. We remain available for dialogue with the other parties to litigation throughout this process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Richmond Centre Marpole.
Mr. Speaker, families, farmers and businesses, people who bought and owned property in my community of Richmond are now fearful their titles may no longer be secure because of the Cowichan ruling. Property ownership is one of the core institutions upon which this country is built. This Liberal government's failure to properly fight for and communicate with folks in BC has created an environment of fear and dread that they may soon lose their rights over their own property. What will the minister do to ensure that countless BC residents will not lose their rights as property owners?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government disagrees with the BC Supreme Court's decision and appealed the decision alongside the Government of British Columbia, the City of Richmond, Musqueam, Tsawwassen, as well as the Cowichan. We absolutely understand the concerns of residents, which is why we've taken this step. We're reviewing potential legal arguments, and all options are on the table. As this case is before the courts, I will not comment any further. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cowichan Malahat Langford.
This appeal will drag out for years. The Cowichan Tribes versus Canada court decision continues to put private property rights at risk. Uncertainty is now escalating into anger and unrest. Landowners are unable to get mortgages, businesses are building facilities in the US instead of BC, and neighbours are turning on each other with verbal threats. Will the Prime Minister finally show some leadership and confirm this appeal will always protect private land title and acknowledge that this is an existential threat to the institution of private property ownership across Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've mentioned multiple times in question period today, as well as past question periods, our government disagrees with the BC Supreme Court decision, and we are appealing it. We are reviewing all options, and as this case is before the courts, I will not comment any further. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Across the country, Canadians are seeing a rise in hate, threats, and intimidation aimed at our communities. If the Conservatives are finally ready to put safety of their own communities first, the Combating Hate Act is right in front of them. Right. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister of Justice tell us what this legislation will mean for the safety of our neighbourhoods, schools, and places of worship?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want this Parliament to take action to combat a rising trend of hate crimes in this country.
Oh my God, Sean, enough out of you.
the Combating Hate Act, which seeks to protect Canadians by putting in place criminal penalties for those who would commit hate crimes against people, whether on the doorsteps of our religious institutions or in our committees more broadly. This is an important day in the future of this legislation. The Justice Committee will be looking at the specific clauses of this bill after question period today, and Canadians will come to understand which parties are interested in protecting communities against hate and which are more interested in obstructing and delaying this legislation. When Canadians are watching, I hope we can demonstrate a spirit of
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
A senior Liberal debating my bill to stop leniency for non-citizens convicted of serious crimes said this: if someone is going out there and raping another individual, do we really believe that they are going to get special treatment from a judge? Well, the very next day, there was a report of a non-citizen in Barrie being convicted of raping a 13-year-old little girl and impregnating her twice. And the rapist had been given an adjournment to see what impact his guilty plea would have on what? His immigration status. Oh. Will the Liberals admit that they were wrong?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, there are provisions in place if a non-citizen commits a crime and serves a sentence. They are removed from Canada, Mr. Speaker. CBSA works on these cases, and they prioritize criminal cases, in fact, when making removals. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is trying to revive a failed bitumen pipeline from Alberta through BC that went nowhere under Stephen Harper's Conservatives and still has no First Nations consent. Talks about ending the oil tanker ban to enable this scheme in an MOU without BC at the table and without coastal First Nations involvement is harming a critical relationship and getting things done. Does this Prime Minister actually realize that pushing a project the coast has already fully rejected is breaking trust with coastal First Nations?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said it in this House, and I will repeat it because I think it's very important to hear it again. We need to ensure the agreement of British Columbia and of First Nations. That is an important part of how we work forward on building a strong Canada, and I hope that if by repeating it, everyone can make sure that those words are heard.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
At no time during the campaign did the Prime Minister say the tanker ban will be lifted or changed. BC Coastal First Nations is saying loud and clear that the tanker ban is not up for negotiation and no MOU will change that. This secret deal signed behind closed doors without BC and First Nations at the table is a betrayal. Enbridge 2.0 will not proceed without First Nations free, prior, informed consent, and BC will not stand for it. Will the Prime Minister acknowledge that this is the pipeline for nowhere but the courts, and stop wasting everyone's time with this political posturing?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I believe this is the last question, you can see the span of views in this chamber. It's interesting to me that it is a
the span of stupidity in this chamber, typically on the Liberal side and the NDP side.
Way forward. Of course, in response to the member, we will work with and have a duty to consult First Nations. Of course, we will work with and have a duty to work with the province of British Columbia, as we do indeed with the province of Alberta. This is a visionary agreement today, a memorandum of understanding that sets a course for the future of Western.
And that's it for today.
Alrighty, there you have it. A lively question period.
I wish to inform the House that the volume of the earpieces will now be readjusted.
I say it's that's it for question period, but we actually have one more question today, and it's the Thursday question. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And yes, it's every CPAC's viewer favorite day of the week, Thursday, when we get to witness the Thursday question. So I'd like to ask the Government House Leader if you can inform the House what we'll be dealing with for the rest of this week and into next week. And if, instead of a flashy MOU that has a carbon tax with no guarantee, a carbon tax hike with no guarantee of a pipeline, will the Liberals bring in legislation to repeal the anti-energy laws that have kept the oil and gas in the ground and made Canada so dependent on the United States? Or will they continue their habit of sending subsidized energy to the U.S. to fund the U.S. economy instead of the Canadian?
Well, Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I won't trouble you once more today with the exciting details of our memorandum of understanding with the province of Alberta today, but I will, Mr. Speaker, provide some transparency and clarity, as always, on the way forward for this Parliament and our spirit of cooperation and transparency as we work with my honourable friend and indeed all members of this House. This afternoon, we'll continue the debate at second reading of Bill C-15, an act to implement certain provisions of the budget. Tomorrow, we'll call Bill C-10, an act respecting the Commissioner for Modern Treaty implementation at second reading. On Monday, we'll see the House return to the third reading debate of Bill C-4, an act respecting certain affordability measures for Canadians, which contains tax cuts, and indeed, I'm sure the Conservatives will want to hurry that bill off to the Senate, Mr. Speaker. On Tuesday, we'll resume the second reading debate of Bill C-13, an act to implement the protocol on the accession of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Mr. Speaker, mercredi.
On Wednesday and Thursday, we'll begin debate at report stage and at third reading of Bill C-12, an act related to some measures with respect to safety at the Canadian border and at the integrity of the Canadian immigration system. Also, for information, for the committees that are examining the supplementary estimates, I currently expect that Tuesday, December 9th will be the last designated day for the budgetary cycle. However, I will confirm this next week. I'd also like to mention that there will be a minister's statement on Thursday, December 4th to commemorate the anniversary of the Polytechnique massacre.
Orders of the day.
Alrighty, that is going to do it for today's live stream. Thank you all for joining. I will be live next Monday, roughly the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That will do it for today. Thank you for joining and have a great rest of your day or night, depending on where you are from. Adios, everyone. Take it easy. Take it easy.
Henry Cochrane had about 4 minutes and 20 seconds left.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. This budget doesn't tackle the real obstacles to growth. Instead of unlocking resource projects or building pipelines or enabling housing construction,